And assuming that you work for about 45 years, assuming average, 45 into 2000 is Zoya 90,000 human hours at the workplace. That's a daunting number, by the way. And that accounts
It's
to about, yeah, yeah,
three-fourths
that
of your
accounts to
life.
about, yeah, approximately about 10 years or more of your life. And
Exactly.
I'm not sure if you're just going to be working at your workplace, doing something that you're great at, doing something that you're paid for, but 90,000 hours of cribbing, complaining, crying, and being in misery and agony that I hate what I'm doing. I said, hey, look, I'm not going to be miserable for 90,000 hours. I chose not to be in agony for 90,000 hours of my life and decided to do what was me. And what was me? It was, I was interested in life. I was interested in people. I was interested in behavioral economics. I was interested in psychology. And then my
Right.
interest in these subjects, which was my passion, and then my calling for spirituality put together, this made I made a decision I'll be a monk because probably a lot of life answers would come from these spiritual paths. But just a word
Right.
of caution to everybody who's watching out here, you know, I took that risk. It was an uncalculated one, just made that massive shift. But if you are wanting to make that shift, not to be a monk, but to follow your passion and doing what you love to do, I think there's real life where there are liabilities, mortgages, financial obligations, and you can't
Yes.
just make that sudden shift, you know. So my advice is you please make sure that all these things are taken care of, and then side by side pursue your dream, pursue your aspiration, follow it side by side a little bit, and if you're fortunate, one day your passion will be your profession. But I moved so that my passion becomes my profession, Zoya.
Absolutely. I think I'll agree with what you just said. It's so
Yeah.
important to do what you love and love
Yes,
what you do. Um,
absolutely.
because there's one life to live, and if you're not happy in that, what's the point?
Oh man, really. True.
Right. So I have a set of questions that I want to ask you. But before I
Sure.
move on to the serious questions, there's one
Uh-huh.
question that I personally want to ask you.
Okay.
Um, when I came across your videos and the lectures that you've given, I felt like I was speaking to someone who is, your lingo was very millennial. There was no
Yes.
pretentious, right? There was
Yeah.
no pretentious
Yeah.
language that you wanted to like address everyone with. It was as if
Mhm.
I was speaking to someone I knew.
Yeah.
Um, so your language has been very today's, right? Why the
Yes.
change in the outfit and why the change in the way you dress? Uh,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
important to be a monk and wear what you wear and just be spiritual?
Yeah. I think there's two different questions there, Zoya. Number one is about the language and the jargon, which kind of is appealing to the millennial and the youngsters out there. And I remember being at Techfest last year or probably the year before, and oh God, there was
2018.
2018. There was like a massive queue out there, and it was all filled with youth, and there was no place to sit. People were sitting in the aisles, and I was surprised why these guys have come. Then I thought, hey, look, I guess the jargon connects, the terminology kind of connects. So that's
Hmm.
one. And the second part is my attire or my being a monk, despite all this modernism and this language and lingo and jargon, right?
Right. Right.
The first one, of course, is about my language and terminology and jargon. You know, there's a age-old proverb in English which says, "Old wine in a new bottle." Right.
Yes.
So the wine is really the same, but the bottle is packaged in a certain way where people find it more appealing to buy it because it's a new bottle. But the content doesn't change. Universal principles, which are principles of life, they don't change. 5,000 years back or 5,000 years from today, things that are relevant to life and how life is going to be transformed won't change. Those principles won't change. But how we package them, you know, gives them a certain kind of appeal. Like if I were to use jargon, which was like super duper spiritual, which was like super duper bouncer going over your head,
Right.
super duper abstract. I don't think so many youngsters would even have thought about giving a keen ear to what
Absolutely.
I had to say. So I really feel that it's crucial that we package what we do being relevant to times. And it's not just spiritual knowledge, but you are into acting. Acting's the same. Where somebody is in comedy, it's about the same. Some companies making a product, it's the same. You need to be with the times in order to give your product my being wisdom, life transforming wisdom. But that's one aspect, the language change of language aspect. And I keep changing it as it goes on. I can use words
Abs-
like savage, lit.
That is what was intriguing to me because uh, I looked at you and then I saw your videos and I was like, okay, you speak like
Yeah,
us. So that was
yeah,
very intriguing to me, which is why
yeah,
the question.
yeah. And then the monk, the attire of a monk
Attire.
and life of a monk. I don't think wisdom is the monopoly of monks. Why? Everybody who lives life, everybody who understands life, everybody who has experience in life has wisdom, right? Like in Hindi they say, जिंदगी की हर सुबह कोई शर्त लेकर आती है, जिंदगी की हर सुबह कोई शर्त लेकर आती है और जिंदगी की हर शाम एक तजुर्बा देकर जाती है. So that tajurba, that experience is what, it's not the monopoly of monks, obviously, right? So I don't think you need to be a monk to change your jargon and present wisdom, not at all, right? Being a monk was a very personal choice I made, right?
Absolutely.
My passion was life and life sciences, but my spiritual calling made me take the life of a monk, correct? And then obviously wisdom and presenting wisdom does not need you to dress in a certain way. But because I've chosen the life of a monk, then obviously I dress up in a certain way. Like if you're an army officer, you've chosen to be an army officer, you're going to dress up in a certain way. If you're a police
Right.
officer, you're going to dress up in a certain way. If you're a doctor, you're going to dress up in a certain way. So the dress is a very personal choice based on the particular path you've chosen. And like somebody, I remember I read this message, someone sending a message, that t-shirt look lit. Not many.
Wow.
Not many have seen me in my t-shirt look, right? I'm usually in a
Absolutely not.
kurta, but today it was just like casual, so I just decided I'll just keep my t-shirt on, right? So
Right,
so
right.
I don't mind putting it on, you see, but this is an attire that I've chosen because of the particular life that I lead. So that's kind of the two answers to the questions that you asked. So yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Absolutely. Also, it came from me being completely intrigued by the look and what you were speaking, and I thought I could totally connect with you the way you spoke,
Yeah, yeah.
but you looked completely different than, it was quite a contrast. Hence the question, but I totally
Yes,
understand it's a personal choice, and
sure.
that's a very, very, very inspiring and something that we can learn from.
Thank
Whatever
you.
you spoke right now about doing what you love, not caring about what other people think, whether it's
Yes,
attire, whether it's how the way you speak, it should resonate with your soul. So I completely
absolutely.
believe in that.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the more serious questions that I have for you,
Okay.
which I'm very excited to ask because I am I am a basic average reader, not a
Hmm.
very avid reader, but I love reading about spirituality and love, those self-help books. My rack is filled with that, although
Yes.
I don't read so much.
Hmm.
But one question that I would like to ask you before this is you need to give us a list of books because you talk about reading a lot in your interviews, that
Yes.
one must read a
Yes.
lot. So,
Yes.
your top five or top three books that one you think one should read in their lifetime.
Yes. Number one, I think people should definitely pick up Open by Andre Agassi, the
Okay.
autobiography, because that's his journey and passion and why he decided to continue with tennis. Absolutely relevant to all professionals, students. I think it's a great story. Long, thick, fat book. You have to get beyond a little bit of tennis, but an absolutely amazing journey. So that's one I would recommend. Secondly, I would recommend a book called 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson.
Okay. I'm writing this
Incredible.
down.
Thank you. It's an incredible book. A little technical in language, but the
Okay.
concepts are just super duper, for
Hmm.
life. 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. The third book I would recommend is a book called Personality Profile, Positive Personality Profiles by Robert Rom. And this is a book which tells you what your personality type is. So when you know
Oh,
what you are and who you are, you're able to live your life better. And when you know what the other person's personality is, you can deal with that person better, right? Number four is a book called Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Absolutely amazing. Every guy who's in a relationship, please listen to this one, yeah. Every guy who's married, looking forward to get married, or is in a relationship, or for that matter, any general relationship, a must read. And fifth, of course, I do recommend reading the Bhagavad Gita, not because it's a book of religion. I hate
absolutely.
calling it a book of religion, but it is a book of life, and I have found that the book has answers to a lot of questions. So these are the five choices. One, of course, I have to say a spiritual book, right? So the Gita.
You have to go with the flow.
Yes, indeed.
So this was my personal, agenda to get the books, get the
Okay.
best books out of you, so I can read well. But moving on to, but of course, our listeners can also, take advantage of,
Absolutely. Sure.
having this list of books and trying to give it a go and try to read as much as possible. Moving
Yes.
on to the questions. Okay, so many have been dealing with depression
hmm hmm
right now, more so because of the lockdown. Um, how can someone stay motivated during this pandemic or during this phase that we're going through right now?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the first thing to understand that it is absolutely normal to be depressed. Denial doesn't work, right? Why deny? If somebody has a heartbreak, he or she is in pain. If somebody fails an exam, he or she is in pain. If somebody loses an opportunity for a job or a business deal, he or she is in pain. There's a lot of uncertainty and insecurity about what's going to happen, the COVID-19 aftermath, right?
Right.
Whether people who have jobs will have jobs, whether they'll be laid off, whether there'll be a salary cut. Businessmen are worried whether their business is going to survive this tough phase. Students
Right.
are worried whether they will be placed, what's going to happen. There's a lot of insecurity. And I think the first aspect is to understand that there's no need to deny it. You know, Acceptance is the first step towards progress. It's half the battle won. You know,
Absolutely.
you half the battle won when you're just saying, okay, man, I feel negative. Fine. You know, it's okay. I feel negative. I'm a human being. I'm not a superman or a superwoman. I'm not an iron man or an iron woman. I'm not a steel man or a steel woman or a Batman or a Batwoman.
Absolutely.
I'm no super something. I'm a human being. And being a human being, I go through this. Correct? Now, I feel it's absolutely normal to be affected by negativity. It's just abnormal to remain in negativity. Because if we remain negative, then that's what's going to kind of really destroy our confidence. Correct? But to go through those ups and downs every day, everyone watching here, please do not feel guilty and punish yourself for it. Just come to terms that this is the life of every human being, especially when there are a lot of uncertainties looming over our heads. You know. So now the question obviously is, how do I bounce back? Every single time I get low, every single time I feel low, how do I bounce back
Come back.
as quickly as is possible, ASAP,
Right.
right? How do I bounce back ASAP, isn't it?
Right.
So here are two, three things that I feel we need to do, especially in the current situation. Number one is, as a student, invest in your study. If you're a professional, invest in whatever you're doing. You know why? Because there's factors that are not in your control, but there's factors in your control, and that's investment in the process. The outcome's not in your control, but the process is in your control. Like, for example, a farmer, he or she doesn't have any control over the rains. Rains are beyond the scope of the farmer to control. But tilling the soil, plowing the soil, making the soil fertile, sowing the seeds is absolutely within the control of the farmer. And if the farmer invests in that process of plowing, tilling, sowing, what the farmer is doing is making him or her future ready. That whenever the rains come, man, I'm ready. Imagine the other farmers who are taking it easy because it's not raining. They don't have that advantage. But this guy has been working hard. Working hard. Why? Because he knows whenever it rains, I'm ready. So that's first. Don't be depressed. Once you start working on the process, you will move out of it and feel confident that मैं कर रहा हूँ, कर रही हूँ जो मेरे हाथ में, right? Then obviously the next question that's kind of a follow-up to it would be, hey, look, I understand, that I need to kind of invest in the process whenever it
Right.
rains. Oh, when the hell is it going to rain? Correct? मतलब कब तक रुके रहेंगे? Isn't it? They say that
That wait
patience is,
period.
that wait period, absolutely. So patience is not just about waiting. Patience is about having the right attitude while waiting. Because wait you must.
Well said.
You don't have a choice. Wait you must. But if I have the right attitude, I'm hopeful, not depressed. You know what I mean? So how does one kind of go through till that period and that wait phase? So I
Hmm.
feel there's two things there. Number one, I think there's a great need for emotional support. Because when you have that low phase, you need somebody to whom you can, there's no solution right away, right? So, but you have somebody, then you
Absolutely.
don't you don't have to go through it alone. There's somebody with whom you can share it. And which is why precisely I say there is a great need that you have a friend or a guide or a mentor, trustworthy person to whom you can confide, you can open up. अपने दिल की बात ना खुल के बोल सकता है कोई, है ना? लेकिन
Agree.
कई बार आजकल क्या होता है ना, आजकल जब आप किसी से अपनी बात बोलने जाते हैं, आजकल समझने वाले लोग नहीं मिलते हैं. जो भी मिलता है वो समझा कर चला जाता है.
They're hearing, but they're never listening.
They're never listening. They're not listening. So if you don't have
Yeah.
such a person, if you don't have such a person, I would say express your emotions to journal writing. Like write uncensored, unprocessed
Right.
thoughts. Let the energy flow and come out on paper, right? Even that's going to make you feel lighter because you expressed yourself. And then I feel apart from that emotional support, there's also a need for spiritual support, which is why meditation or prayer or
Absolutely.
whatever aspect people follow in their particular life will give us that fortitude and that strength to face these challenges in that wait phase. So that's how I would look at this whole the depression thing during this phase. But please understand, everybody who's watching, it's normal. Yeah, don't just kind of punish yourself. मुझे ऐसा क्यों लग रहा है? क्यों लग रहा है? Accept it and half the battle won. You know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you for those enlightening words. I think a
Thank
lot
you.
of us are
Thank
going
you.
through this depression. Even, a lot of my people that I know. In fact, I had a question put up on Instagram if somebody would like to ask you anything. Most of the questions that came in were regarding this.
Okay.
How to not procrastinate, how to, reach a point where you're not sad about this whole situation and you do something about it. So you very
Yes.
well explained it. If you all got the answers to that. So, okay, the second question to you is, do you believe in destiny? If yes,
hmm
what is the value of our efforts? If no,
hmm
why do we fail
hmm
sometimes, even when sometimes we feel that our soul feels that this is our destiny? We work hard towards it,
hmm
but even then we fail.
hmm Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
why does that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Here's my question. Like if a student doesn't study for the entire semester and fails his or her exam, is that destiny? No. That's wrong choices. I did study. So it's
Yeah,
led me to fail my exam. Correct?
absolutely.
Now, a student gives 200% to his or her studies. And in the examination question paper, there are questions which somehow come which are not at all to the knowledge of the student. There's no fault of the student now. He or she is given 200%. Now,
Right.
that is a situation which is destiny, correct? Now,
Hmm.
imagine a person who is a compulsive alcoholic,
Hmm.
gets a liver disease. Is it destiny? No. It's complete abuse of free will and choice, correct? Imagine a person who's been teetotaler, clean life, done nothing, and gets a liver disease. Now the situation is destiny, correct? So
Right.
when we are talking about a wrong choice leading to an outcome, that's stupidity and idiocy, irresponsibility, correct? But when we are
Right.
talking about an outcome or a situation in our life, which is number one, unsolicited, we didn't ask for it, correct? Number two, beyond our control, we can do nothing about it straight away. Beyond number three, which is not our fault, not our immediate fault, we did nothing to get it. Then I can
Right.
say this is my destiny. It wasn't in my hand. It's come from somewhere, which is a realm of philosophy to then understand where, how, and all of those things.
Right.
But here's what I usually like to say. It's not about what happens to us beyond our control, things beyond our control, destiny. It's not about what happens to us. It's about what we do with what happens to us. The situation is destined. I didn't seek it. I didn't do anything to get it. But how I respond to it is entirely in my control. And it's that response that decides the future outcome out of the situation that I have at hand. Which is why they say man or woman is the maker of his or her destiny. You know, like
Right.
Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was thrown out of his own company. He didn't crib. He didn't blame it on destiny. He said, whatever the situation is, let me see what I can do about it. That response is absolutely in my hands. And that's when Steve Jobs started Next Animation. He started Pixar. And he found the love of his life. He got married. He was passionate about his work. He didn't crib. He didn't complain. जिंदगी मेरे साथ ऐसे क्यों कर रही है? भगवान मेरे साथ ऐसे क्यों कर रहा है? Life is unfair. He didn't crib. Greatness is about how you respond. And every human being has the potential to be great by responding to that situation, which is outside of my control. So I do believe in destiny. When when I haven't made a wrong choice now to have a wrong outcome, when I have done everything right and something comes up to me, what else do I call it? Somebody can call it karma, somebody can call it destiny, somebody will call it fate, somebody will call it luck. Use whatever word you want, but the fact is I didn't ask for it.
Right.
Now I have to know what do I do about it. And that response will define our lives. So I think that is the crucial aspect. It's not about what happens to us, it's about what we do with what happens to us.
Absolutely. So there is destiny, but we can't make wrong choices and then blame it on destiny.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Great. The next question is regarding technology, since you are an electrical engineer and you have
Uh-huh.
been in IIT. So I think you would be the apt person to have a response to this question.
Mm-hmm.
Technology keeps us apart in normal times, but is keeping us together now.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on that? And how do
Yeah.
you see technology in
Oh, yeah.
in which light do you see it?
Yes. Thank you for that question. But firstly, to clarify, and I didn't study at IIT Zoya. I
Oh, you
studied at
did.
college. Oh, I studied at College of Engineering, Pune. But thank you for saying IIT. I love IIT.
My bad. I'm so
No,
sorry.
no,
My
no,
bad.
no, 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 no. Just to clarify, otherwise, people will think because they know I am a this is COEP, and so they'll think झूठ बोल रहा है. Just
No, no.
clarifying, yeah. Just
Absolutely my
clarifying.
bad.
No, 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 not at all. So obviously, people see me as a very tech savvy guy, 100%. I am on top of it all and understand the world of technology very well. The question is, what is the value of technology in our lives, isn't it? Like
Yes.
earlier on, we found that technology was distancing us, and
Yes.
and now that social distancing is in place, technology is bringing us closer, right? So when we were meant to be closer, there was distancing. And now when we are meant to be practicing distancing, the heart yearns to be closer. Correct?
Right.
So I feel this pandemic has, in one sense, given us a very good realization and experience. And that experience is relationships are meant to be real with real people. They're not just meant to be virtual. As many as online followers we have on our social media, and we have a massive fan base, real relationships are real relationships. When I go through a personal crisis and the world gets to know, all our social media followers will send bouquets and tears and cry, and genuinely. But the people who will be there on the ground for me are those with whom I've actually spent my real time and developed those real relationships and real deep bondings, right?
Right.
So I do feel technology is powerful. It is an incredible tool that humanity has come up with, and technology can do so much to the world if it is used rightly, in the right proportion, with the right intention. As soon as it crosses the boundary, everything becomes toxic. Relationships become toxic when they cross a certain line. Positivity becomes toxic when it crosses a certain line. Use of technology becomes toxic when it crosses a certain line. Social media becomes toxic when it crosses a certain line. So it's very important for all of us as conscious, aware human beings to understand, where do I draw that line for myself? And each individual will have a different line based on their
Right.
particular situations and particular lives. But I feel technology is powerful. It can help us connect with the world. It can give great solutions to the world. At the same time, we should be very conscious. Today is the World Environment Day. And being the World Environment Day, we also see how technology has led to a lot of environmental disasters. And now
Absolutely.
during the pandemic, we have realized that when we were away, look at what nature has done. Nature has healed. The world has healed. The water bodies, the mountains, the trees, the air has healed. It's pure and pristine. So now when we go back, let us be conscious. Not to say we can never go back to the ideal no technology life. How is that possible? But can we be more conscious in its utility? Can we be more aware in how we use it and in what proportion we use it? If we are, I think technology is super, you know.
Right. Absolutely. Consciousness is the beginning of everything.
Indeed,
Um,
indeed.
I read in on your Instagram about this post where it said positivity can be toxic as well, like
Yes,
toxic
yes,
positivity. Can
indeed.
you elaborate on that and how do you think that positivity
Yes,
can be toxic?
yes. I think I did refer to it a little earlier on in our discussion, but I didn't use that term
Right,
earlier on when I explained. But
right.
this is what I mean. I always tell this funny joke. It's my favorite. You know, a guy was walking on the street and a bird passed on his head. What birds do? They're Leela. Sorry, passed on his head.
Right.
And when this bird passed on his head, the guy said, "Oh, thank God, elephants don't fly." You know, because if elephants would fly, it wouldn't just be on the head, be
It'll
all
be
over the
all over
place.
you.
All the
Right.
way. Now, it's a good thought, positive thought, right? But I feel positivity is not just some mental adjustment of thoughts. You know why? Because there's still going to be the stuff that the bird has passed on the head, and you have to deal with it. Correct? You have
Right.
to deal
Right.
with the stuff. You can't just say elephants don't fly and go to a party with the stuff on your head, right?
Absolutely
If
not.
if somebody has cancer and going and telling them, "Thank God you don't have Alzheimer's,"
Right.
what kind of violence is that? If somebody has a mentally challenged child and you go and tell him, "Oh, consider this as a gift of life so that you can learn some lessons in your life,"
That's harsh.
crap, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's harsh. That's
Yeah.
harsh, isn't it? Somebody is going through a breakup and you go and tell them, "Hey, glad, you were saved from this relationship."
Yeah. Which we
So
hear a
cruel.
lot. That
We
we hear
hear
a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
It's so cruel. It's so cruel, right? So when I talk about toxic positivity, it's that everything is hunky dory, everything is great. There's a silver lining around every dark cloud. everything's going to get perfect, everything's perfect, everybody's perfect, man, life's just fun, chill. No, that's toxic positivity, you know.
Yeah.
What real positivity makes you vulnerable? Real positivity means to be vulnerable and to understand, hey, look, I have this stuff on my head that the bird is parked. I need to deal with it. I'm going to see the silver lining for sure. But the silver lining needs to be balanced with that vulnerability to accept that this stuff is there and I need to deal with it. When you have that, then that to me is real positivity. Like I said, anything that crosses a certain boundary becomes toxic. So when positivity crosses that boundary of human vulnerability, then that becomes toxic positivity. But when your positivity is within the boundary of human vulnerability, that's real positivity. So I think that's how I would explain it.
Absolutely. And so many
Yeah.
of us, like the youngsters, are going through this time where, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, where we only upload pictures of us on
Yes,
vacations, having fun. So when the audience looks at the picture, it's the highlight of that person's life. And we see
yes,
that, oh my God, this person's living an amazing life. So I think that is also somewhere kind of toxic to other people, where people don't
it is.
understand
It is.
that
Yes,
everybody goes through highs and lows. And this whole
correct.
social media of, posting the best time of your life um,
Yes,
is okay, but the other person seeing it in a way where the person's life is just that and
correct.
is super positive and super high spirited, I think that's also kind of toxic. So most of the
Absolutely.
youngsters are
Absolutely.
going through this right now,
They go through FOMO,
young people.
you know.
FOMO.
FOMO, absolutely FOMO.
I think I'll never get over your lingo. So someone on my feed asked me to ask you, where does all your wisdom come from? Where does it?
Uh-huh.
What has
Okay,
inspired you?
okay. I think, like I firstly said earlier on, that, wisdom is not the monopoly of monks. It is the right to everybody who lives their life,
Right.
isn't it? Everybody who lives their life. Like somebody said, of course, the first thing I feel, the first is reading. The more you read, the more you're going to be exposed through to the viewpoints and the worldviews of several people in the world. You're not
Right.
going to be the frog in the well thinking, I'm the
Not
best.
going to be in a box.
Not in the box. Absolutely not in the box. You're going to be exposed to other people's thinking. You're going to open your mind to what other people are saying. And when I talk about reading, I also talk about online content, which is videos or shows or whatever else. It all comes in that category where you're consuming content, right? Whether it's reading or watching. So basically, we are exposing ourselves to understand more from others. That definitely adds to our understanding, correct? That's one element of your wisdom. The second element, obviously, is interacting with people, real people. When you're interacting with people, you start understanding the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the peaks and the valleys, the crests and the troughs of real life relationships. And then when you have a dialogue, in Sanskrit it's called samvad, you have a conversation. There's so much that people have to share if we are only willing to listen. I always say that if you think you're the smartest in the room, you're actually in the wrong room, right? Because how can we ever be the smartest? There are going to be people around us who know so much more. So that's the second source of wisdom, that you actually interact, converse, have dialogues with people who live their lives, who know so much more. And it's such an
Right.
incredible strength to be able to learn from them. And the third thing I feel is just your own life experiences, isn't it? That teaches you so much, so much.
So,
Like somebody said that tajurbe, tajurbe,
hmm.
or tajurba, whatever, tajurba इंसान को गलत फैसले लेने से बचाता है. तजुर्बा इंसान को गलत फैसला
Hmm.
लेने से बचाता है, लेकिन तजुर्बा इंसान को गलत फैसले से ही आता है. you know so if you so
It's the catch
Experience
22 situation
is the
then.
catch 22 situation that you get experience. Experience stops you from making the wrong decisions, but you only get experience by making the wrong decisions. So, not to say
True,
that we consciously make those mistakes, but we anyways make them. So, I
true.
would say wisdom comes from these three things. And for me, it's been a major source. Number one is reading and watching the right kind of people. Number two is interacting with people and learning from my teachers and my gurus through conversations, through dialogues with them. And number three is your own mistakes, your own experiences. And I've made many and I still do. It's stupid to say that just because you're a monk, you're above all mistakes. And any monk or any spiritual leader who says that is an absolute liar because everybody is a
Right.
human being and everybody makes those mistakes, right? So, yeah, that's the source of wisdom, I guess.
Absolutely. Very well said. And I think we all can learn from our mistakes and turn them into stepping stones. We
Yes,
are well over time, but I feel
indeed,
like I can
indeed.
speak to you all day long.
Oh, Zoya, such a
Um,
pleasure. Yeah, I would love to chat all day long.
but we're well over time, so I would really
Indeed,
like
indeed.
to conclude this
Sure,
discussion
sure.
with one last question is how to
Uh-huh.
deal with this global pandemic. How do we deal with
Yes,
this?
yes. I think when we're talking about dealing with this global pandemic, number one, let us become more aware citizens of India. And people who are watching from overseas, let us become responsible global citizens where we follow all the required norms of, social distancing, sanitation, and hygiene that is required to stay safe from this COVID-19 pandemic. And as the lockdown is being eased now, it's going to be all the more imperative and essential that we become careful. और इसीलिए तंदूरी रोटी अभी खाने मिले या नहीं मिले, तंदूरी जरूर रखना. Social distancing is तंदूरी. So that's
Not
what
bad.
that's one, of course. Let's
Right.
become more conscious and aware of following the right protocols to be safe and stay safe. Number two is, like I earlier mentioned, let us become more conscious when we get back into the world to be, really conscious about the environment, about the animals, the trees, and being sensitive to the needs of every human being and everybody out there. And I think let us keep hope. The one thing that we need to keep is hope that it will work out. बुरे वक्त का भी एक दिन बुरा वक्त आता है. you know so इस बुरे वक्त का भी
Well,
बुरा वक्त
right.
आएगा जी. So let's keep that hope and keep going, Zoya.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
It's
Thank
been
you.
a
Such a
pleasure
pleasure.
to speak to you. And thank you, IIT Bombay, for giving me the opportunity to have a discussion with you. And it's been an honor, and I think we've
My honor
learned
and
quite a
pleasure.
lot.
Thank you.
Any conclusions that you would like to give to this discussion? Anything that you would like to ask?
My question to you, Zoya, how have you spent your lockdown?
Oh, for the first few days, it was going into that rut of Netflix and chill and eating junk.
Yes,
But I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. After 4 or 5
yes,
days, I felt like it's too much and I need to get a routine back. And I felt like this was a great opportunity for, as
indeed.
an artist, as an actor, you need to do a lot of research, need to see a lot of films,
Yes,
work on
yes.
your skills. So I started waking up early, doing my workouts, learning, doing some online classes for vocal training, for my acting. And I've started a pageant training workshop. So a lot has happened over this whole lockdown period, which I'm very
Yeah,
thankful for. And I'm
yeah.
not a very social person generally. So
Okay.
I kind of feel it's a little blessing where I don't have FOMO
Okay.
anymore.
Lovely,
So that's a
lovely.
good thing.
Thank you again, and thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
TechFest IIT Bombay for having me over, and thank you, Zoya, for this lovely evening, and thank you all for joining this
Thank you.
conversation this evening. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Have a good
Absolute
day.
pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So that was Sri Gaur Gopal Das with us. And he gave us a lot of, I must say, wisdom that we can learn from. And whatever he said about, learning from our mistakes, being conscious in the situation, being in